as we approach the 2023 presidential elections, seeking to replace President Muhammadu Buhari are stepping up. Those seeking are stepping up their campaigns, I should say, not just in Nigeria, but also the shores of the country. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku, has taken his campaign to London, where he met with British officials. He was accompanied on a visit by a retinue of political associates and aides, including Chief Raymond Dokpesi, House Leader, Minority Leader under the Elibelu, Senator Dino Melaye, Reno Mokri, and Timmy Frank, amongst others. In a tweet, Atiku shared the photos of the meeting, saying it was an opportunity for them to share his vision for Nigeria. So joining us on the morning show to discuss the meeting with the British government is Daniel Bwala, spokesperson for Atiku Presidential Campaign Council. Welcome to the show once again, Daniel, and it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I would like you to tell us about these meetings and how they are going to help us with our 77 trillion deficit in the economy.
Good morning, Mr. Rufai. In fact, I thought to myself that I know you're going to ask about the 70 trillion debt, and unfortunately that didn't come up for reasons I don't know, but economy came up, and I'm sure that how to pay off the 70 trillion must fall under economy. And when the issue of economy came up, Atiku Abubakar emphatically and very strongly reiterated the commitment of the People's Democratic Party and via his manifesto, the commitment he has to ensure that we get our economy back. But I can tell you, and this is not part of what was discussed yesterday, that part of what we intend to do with the debt is to look at how, when we come on board, we'll have a sit down with the debt manager or debt owners and make them understand the situation that we're in, and probably negotiate to see if we can have, in some cases, the debt service suspension for about a year or two, and then where necessary, we can get probably debt reduction or cancellation. Whatever is the case, the same principle that applied in 1999 when they came on board, and we had that debt, they had to go around the world to tell them, look, this is a serious government. And if you can look at our manifesto, if you believe that the blueprint for economic recovery in our manifesto is one that you can have confidence in, then you may consider debt cancellation, debt reduction, or recalculation of the services. But the other issues that were discussed at the meeting, and quite frankly, touched on the healthcare, for example. Primary healthcare was the main issue that was raised because, of course, you will agree with me, that in Nigeria today, secondary healthcare and then tertiary healthcare, or whatever the nomenclature is, does not have so much of a problem as the primary healthcare. Imagine diseases, displaced persons, mortality, infant mortality, and the rest. So it was discussed on how the British people or the British government can collaborate with Nigeria in dealing with that. They talked about immigration. The British officials raised concern about immigration of Nigerians into the United Kingdom, and they asked the question, what will the posture of the government be should he win election when they will have to bring back Nigerians who, for obvious reasons, will have to be sent back from the UK? He made it clear to them that Nigeria's national security interest is the interest of its citizens. But he also told them that when you are sending the bad guys, remember we have quite a number of good guys that go to your economy and you make it conducive and convenient for them to go. So it will be nice if you can partner with us to keep those indicators, those variables that make them, in fact, Atiku Abubakar classified that as push and pull factor. So the push factors are those things happening in Nigeria that tend to push people out of the country. Insecurity is one, economic problem is the other. Safety, lack of safety in the workplace environment is also one of those. And he believes that by our policy, we intend to create that environment that will make working in Nigeria not just attractive, but fulfilling, and that the Nigerian people can find a future. And that he called upon the British government to participate by collaborating with us to ensure that they don't take our good guys. They help us in strengthening the institution that will keep the good guys. With respect to democratic values, he told them right off the cuff that, look, part of the push is that when people do not have confidence in the outcome of election, then people will not participate. Then people will not trust the government. Then people will take laws into their hands. And then you have this cyclical effect. And building democratic ideals and democratic processes in Nigeria is key, but they must not close their eyes to the role they can play in strengthening that. And he made the case that from 1999 to 2007, People's Democratic Party government helped in establishing certain institutions that are so far, strengthening our democracy. And this is what is committed to doing if they can get collaboration. And then, of course, they raise concern about the West African sub-region, the terrorism and the insecurity in those areas. Okay. He said that is part of his commitment.
Okay. All right. Okay, real quickly, I have a follow-up on the debt issue. The debt is broken in two folds. We've got 22 trillion now in ways and means. That was printed. All right? And the federal government is trying to securitize that now against the laws of the CBN Act, Section 38. What's the candidate's view as regards securitization, and what will he do with that 22 trillion naira debt?
So first of all, I haven't had a personal conversation on this development, but I know well enough from the manifesto and from his various engagement, certain things he does not believe in, before I come to the ways and means. For example, he said he doesn't believe in multiple exchange rate and that from day one, he's going to end that. He talked about, subsidy, that is going to commence the process that will lead up to the removal of the subsidy. Now, with what you have mentioned specifically, I believe is a case that you will have to deal with when you study the situation as of today. When you are not in government, it is very, very difficult for you to know the nitty-gritties of how we come about where we are, especially with ways and means and some of this debt you're talking about. But you may have seen in the past few days, I think about a week ago, the news shared in social media that he has constituted an economic team to look into the situation that we're confronted with and advise on how we can hit the ground running from day one. And he has expressed concern in that regard. But you must know, Mr. Rufai, that this APC-led government on many occasions have turned away from regulations that govern processes and procedure, especially with respect to the activities of the central bank. They have taken us to the abyss at the moment. And therefore, no matter what you do and no matter the strategy you come up with, we believe in rules and regulation and due process of law. We are going to abide by the provisions of the CBN Act. Where there is a need for a reform, we are going to make recommendation for a reform. But certainly, we are not going to toe on the part of the APC-led government in this abuse of the CBN Act just because they want to rally around, print money, and do all of that to cushion the effect of recession that we are obviously facing at the moment.
All right, Ms. Bwala. So we were very interested in the wins from the meeting, your presidential candidates meeting with the British government. I mean, prior to his invitation, the British government had hosted the candidates of the Labour Party and of the APC. So it'd be great to see what your candidate, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, has brought out, in addition to all the things you said earlier. But before we delve into that, Nigerians are very interested. Your candidate was in Dubai just before he went to England, went to London. From the 1st of January, he was in Dubai, and he hasn't yet been in Nigeria. People are looking for him on the campaign grounds, as we have only about 45 days to the presidential election. One would assume that he would be hard on the trail of the campaigns. I'd like to ask you, is this what Nigerians should expect? Should he become the president, whereby he'd be out of the country, particularly in Dubai or in London?
Okay, actually, we were the first political party to commence campaign. In fact, beginning with constitution of the campaign council and the commencement of the campaign. And within a short period, we covered quite a number of places. And we've broken our campaign approaches to campaigns in rallies, campaigns via town halls, campaigns via consultation. And but you must remember also that we are guided by our own calendar and not the calendar of another political party. And based on our calendar, you would have noticed that from 17 or that, from 21st or thereabout, we had a holiday. And it is this period that he took time off to be away and reflect, and refresh again. In campaigns, and we must also promote that, where you retreat once in a while to re-energize, reinvigorate yourself and refresh yourself with ideas on how you can go forward. During holiday, anybody has the right to go anywhere in the world that he wishes to go for holiday. I mean, I came to England. I'm in England on holiday. But the campaign is constituted by not just the presidential candidate, the vice presidential candidate has been on ground also engaging. Then you have campaign officers. And in the introduction that Mr. Rufai gave, I think he omitted probably to mention the fact that part of the delegation also constituted by Governor Tambuwal, Governor Obaseki, Governor Udom, and the likes of others, Saraki and the rest. I think he mentioned Saraki in the team and in the delegation. So in a nutshell, we have been setting the pace. We have been ahead in all of the campaign processes. And because we started out early, it afforded us the luxury of having the presidential candidates spend a bit of time outside of the country. However, you must notice that even the engagement in London at the moment is still part of our campaign activities leading up to election. I'm not sure that the Labour Party candidate or the APC candidate has engaged with the British officers at this level. But I can tell for us that we engage with them. In fact, separate meetings, about 8 separate meetings we've had with the British officers on this wide range of issues. We believe that we have serious problem confronting us as a country. So we must go beyond these primordial activities of, going around, like I was telling somebody, he said, why is your candidate not in the Chatham House? I said, the Chatham House is a building. The Royal Institute of International Affairs used to be an intellectual engagement forum where you have people around the world engage very robustly. And anytime you have a program like that, the world is represented because it is believed that you go there to speak to the world. But lately, it has been bastardized by Africans. When they go, you see Africans from whichever part of Africa meeting up with Africans in London, filling up the space that is not covered by the media. There's no representation of any foreign government there. So it's like you move out of the country to just go and rent a venue and have activities and then come back. We felt that these people will not see you as a serious person unless you engage with them on real stuff, like what Rufai raised earlier, on the debt. This is what you will be confronted with as you take the oath of office. It's not going to wait for you. So what are you going to do about it? What is your plan? How do you intend to push? Do you think that there is need for collaboration with the debt managers or debt owners? These are the real stuff that we believe we should be engaging, so that when you take the oath of office, like the way I heard Rufai said, I think either yesterday or day before yesterday, that look, Nigeria is already in problem. No person that wins elections should begin to then refer back and say, we found a problem, we found you hit the ground. That's the reason you have voted and moved. So because you cannot afford the luxury of excuses, then you must face real stuff and be very serious about your engagement with international partners.
Okay, still speaking about the issues, it's a very dire time for Nigeria, Mr. Bwala. We have inflation that is over 17-year high. When we say this in business and economic terms, it dwarfs the fact that what it means is that in 17 years, we've not had inflation this high. Over 21% now and counting. And the value of our currency is eroding. So you said something I'd like to get some feedback on. You said the president, you said that your candidate, I should say, Atiku Abubakar, would not keep aiding the currency as we know that it is now. That's why we have multiple exchange rates. That's why we have, 465 somewhere, but when you get to the real market, it's 7 something. So there's going to be a unified exchange rates. If he does that, what are going to be the implications? And how is he going to fight inflation that is already raging as we speak?
Right. So this is a belief. If you look at the government of APC in the last 7 years, there are key indicators to the reason why we arrive at where we are today. One is incoherent policies. This type of incoherent policies tend to confuse investors, even if they are Nigerian domestic investors, not to talk of foreign investors that we barely, we crave for them to come and bring in, forex into our economy in order to strengthen the economy. So when you have incoherent policies, what happens is that investors tend to be confused. And so nobody wants to take the risk because there is no assurances that the risk management can be cushioned by policies of government. So you are not able to decipher what exactly the government is all about. And that is why, if you have noticed, in the last 1 or 2 years, we have even foreign companies operating in Nigeria rounding up and selling off their assets to fly out of the country. You have seen what we have also faced in aviation industry, where even foreign airlines that legitimately raise their money through payment of ticket and charges and surcharge and all that, they are unable to recoup, to get back the money they deposited, not that they transacted with the government. That's why you also found that the government and the APC came to a point where they issued a policy guideline that, in fact, if you have your money deposited, but you haven't used it for 7 months, they are going to, take the money and invest. That's why you see also, even when they introduced the agricultural policy and they said we have food sufficiency in the country, but there is no concomitant effect, because one of the proofs of food sufficiency is that the prices of the item in the market will be stabilized, or even you have low prices. So rice, which they boast about, you found out that even with the quote-unquote subsidy on rice, because they gave us seedlings and certain subsidies to them, yet rice as of December was about 50 or 52,000 naira to it. So incoherent policies, one, we will reverse that. Our policy guidelines are policy issue, our document is quite clear. So, and our intention is for whoever wants to invest to look at it on the first value and see to yourself whether this type of policy will promote private participation. Inflation is also caused by when the economy is not stimulated, means that the citizens are not participating in the economy. And how can the citizen participate in the economy where, for example, there are no incentives for people to participate privately, whether at the small and medium scale, or at the substantially large scale, or a massive scale of collaboration with foreign companies? So these are some of the problems. Our intention is to reverse it. And the ways by which we intend to reverse it is clearly spelled out. Atiku said, upon assumption of office, he's committed to raising the $10 billion as a carrying capital to invest now in small and medium enterprises and make sure that the youth participate in the economy. And he said that the way by which he will achieve that is to get a consultants, consortium of firms. Let us say right off the cuff that dollar will always find its way wherever the investment opportunities are there. Like I said the other time on your show, that even if you have never been to the United States of America, if you get the gist that Apple shares are on sale and there is return on investment, without having a visa, if you have your way, you will invest, and yet you live in Nigeria, not to talk of people who are all over Africa looking for investment opportunities. So we want to create that environment that will attract investment. Incentive is key. Private sector participation is key.
Okay, I mean, you said $10 billion. Have you checked recently what the government revenue is? How is it going to raise that money? And also benchmark that with what we've been making in FDIs. How is it going to raise that $10 billion when the governmental revenue is at an all-time low, and FDIs, you say it's going to call in consultants? What are they going to do? Where's the money going to come from?
So the consultants can come in by way of investment opportunities, that if you can give this amount to us, it's just like a trust, right? If you can give this amount to us over a period of this and this, your investment in this country will get certain incentives. Because he has talked about incentivizing, I don't know the right word to say, incentivizing or incentivizing. I don't know the pronunciation. Incentivizing. Don't mind the village man from Borno. So he talked about incentivizing, right? Once investors are confident that, for example, let's say in public-private participation partnership, once the private sector investors are confident that over a period of time, they will have their return on investment, like I said earlier, they will be willing to bring. So he is not intended. He also talked about, for example, the privatization of the NNPC. If you privatize NNPC at this point, I'm sure you are sure to get close to 4 to 5 billion, assuming. But then again, you have other investors, domestic investors. You have capital in the country that is just hovering without specific fixation on a particular project. So once the people have confidence in your government, I'm telling you, private sectors can come together and pull the capital together, in addition to privatization of certain assets of government that are moribund or that are ineffective. This is what it intends to do. Okay,
so talking about revenue, as Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio is at its all-time high. Now, I'd like you to speak to subsidy. I know we've asked your candidate a number of times, and it's not quite clear because come May May 2023, if your candidate does become president, you'll have a difficult decision to make. That is to take out subsidy or to continue to fund subsidy. I'd like to get your clear position on this morning. In addition to that, I'd like you to also speak on security. Yesterday, the president was speaking in Yobe, and he was talking about how his administration had degraded Boko Haram in the Northeast. I'm glad you're from the Northeast in Borno State. And earlier on, we were talking about figures of deaths by violent acts, and in Borno State alone, about 35,000 people killed by official figures. It could be more. It would be great to hear your candidate's stance on how he would tackle insecurity in Nigeria. And in addition to this, aside Boko Haram, of course, we have kidnapping, banditry, herdsmen, farmers, many things that he has to tackle if he does become president.
Right. So with respect to the first point, which is dealing with the subsidy, subsidy is not what you issue out as an executive order on the day after you take the oath of office, because you know for sure that once you remove the subsidy on day one, probably there is going to be a telling effect on the masses, because you have to lay the foundation for cushioning of the effect. So we're looking at, for example, what do we intend to do if we remove subsidy? The reinvestment of the money that ordinarily has been accruing through subsidy will be reinvested into critical areas of the economy. We looked at, for example, if you remove subsidy, the prices of transportation is going to be high, and this will cut across all platforms. Everybody will be affected. And the very concerned are those ones below the poverty scale and the middle class. So you have to make arrangement to provide some form of mass transit, mass transit that will cushion that effect. You have to look at healthcare. You have to look at infrastructure. So all of these areas are where we intend to invest. But I would tell you, like you asked for a clear-cut steps on that. It is not going to be a day one, like in the case of this removal of multiple exchange rate. In the case of subsidy, once you come on board, you will then look at how to immediately start implementing the cushioning effect, and then you remove subsidy. But there's no going back on it. Atiku has never at any material time considered the idea of going back or compromising. It is something that all of us have to be prepared for. It's going to make you unpopular. In fact, Buhari wanted to remove the subsidy. Politicians around came and told him not to do that, or else it will cost them the election. And now it's even costing them the election a bit more, because that irresponsibility has brought us to the point of this debt that we're talking about. So that's the position with respect to subsidy. With respect to insecurity, I think that even though Muhammadu Buhari tried immensely by ensuring that he acquires assets to fight insurgency, why we have not found breakthrough in that, I can make the bold statement to a bold position to say that he did not provide decisive leadership, because leadership is everything in everything you do. Where there is no leadership, resources will be squandered. That's what we find. People are not called to account for wrongdoings. People do not have a sense that they will be sacked if they do not perform. People in the APC-led government tend to believe that just find your way, because once you go there, you're going to end the government alongside the president. Irrespective of petition, outcry, widespread disbelief, discontent by the Nigerian nation, nobody cares. So that's why you find more than 70% of the cabinet members are not just ineffective, grossly ineffective, and yet there has never been a consideration to reject, change them, or even hold them to account. This is one problem. Atiku is going to bring in leadership, and it will not fail to sack the next day after appointment, even if it were to be somebody closest to him when the need arises. All you need to do is to look at his past.
All right, so
I
hear you loud and clear in terms of the fact that your presidential candidate is going to deal decisively and is not going to hold prisoners when it comes to holding people to account. But then one cannot but remember the case of Deborah Emmanuel, and his response to that. It didn't seem quite decisive. It didn't seem quite, hard, because there was a tweet on that, which he tweeted, and then he deleted it. And a number of people said it was because of outcry from members of, from the northern part who had said they were going to withhold their votes because of his statement. And then the tweet was deleted. With that kind of response, it is difficult to believe that he would take a hard stance on people who are perpetrating evil in the land.
So I need you to know, in order to counter that point, that Atiku Abubakar is one politician from the northern extraction whom over the years, the northern people tend to think he is not completely theirs because of his hard stance on issues that matters, for example, on national unity, national cohesion, equal access to opportunities, integration of everybody in every part of the country. That's one. So any notion that is given or interpretation given to why the tweet was deleted will be contrary to what he stood for and is still standing for as a principle and a character over the years. The reason why the tweet was deleted, like we said, over and over and over, and it has become a hip-hop song, is that tweet was made not by his authorization. And I can confirm, because when it happened, I hadn't joined them. But even as of today, his Twitter handle is managed by AIDS. And the procedure is that you confer with him on tweets to publish, because he's going to be held liable by the tweet because it is his official handle. That tweet was made without consultation with him. So what he did was immediately he asked that the tweet be deleted, number one. But the follow-up on that is that he took a very stern position supporting the rule of law and condemning extrajudicial killing. I think that is sufficient as far as that matter is concerned. But that is not the only area you determine or adjudge his capacity in taking decision or providing leadership. Take, for example, Atiku believes in the fact that the Igbos are not given the opportunity that they deserve. All his life, he has been taking an Igbo person as the vice presidential candidate, just to prove a point, even though it was costing him death. Thankfully, now is the better time and it's going to work out.
Mr. Bwala, there's something raging online. A former aide to Atiku Abubakar is talking about SPVs. What are the reactions to this?
Actually, I don't know him. I've never met him. And he is not running for office. And within the purview of my assignment, I'm, a spokesman for the campaign. And that's why I have not engaged in that regard. But with regard to SPV, I think even Americans, England, the world over, SPVs are created to manage risk. SPVs are created to execute special purposes. So if we are going to have an intellectual engagement around SPVs, it's a different thing. But with respect to the person, I do not intend to dignify him by talking about him. I'm even told by the campaign that he has never at any material time been given official appointment or whatever.
So he was never an aide of Atiku Abubakar?
I was told that he has never, in fact, Dino called upon him to present his appointment letter, and I think he hasn't done that up till now. As a politician, let me be honest with you, Atiku is a bit different from other politicians. Atiku believes in young people given the opportunity. You look around, Atiku also believes in equal opportunity, so you will not find a certain part of the country, around him much more than the other part of the country. So some people have taken advantage of that special privilege that Atiku has given. And I think that the conduct of that person will rather block opportunities for youngsters that ordinarily one will, trust and they give them the opportunity. Because if you look at the leaked that it happened a long time, it happened at a time when it was presumed that he was in good terms. So young people might be considered as people who are blackmailers. So and I hope that message does not resonate with the elite or with the elderly, so that they tend to have some form of distrust on the younger people coming up.
We'll call it today. Thanks for your time, Dr. Bwala.